Good evening, everyone. Please excuse my voice. It is July 23rd, 2024 at 6 o'clock. And we're going to call to order this meeting and begin with the roll call. This is a council committee meeting. I'm going to begin with the roll call and ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll for us, please.
Vice Mayor Love.
Here.
Councilman Allison.
Present.
Councilman Carter.
Present.
Councilman Fan.
Here.
Councilman Fennell.
Here.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
And Councilman Juvance is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. Tonight you have the July 9th, 2024 council committee meeting minutes for your consideration.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Hayes.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Love. Are there any corrections or additions requested? Okay. Seeing none being asked for, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, please say no. Minutes from July 9, 2024 are unanimously approved. We're going to move now to public recognition. This is a council committee meeting, so all public recognition is at the beginning of the meeting, which means that you can speak to something that's on the menu. On the menu. Maybe forgive my brain too. Something that's on the agenda or anything that's not on the agenda either. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. You'll address your comments to the council and to the mayor. And we need your name and your address for the record, please. But right now, public recognition is now open.
My name's Bobby Reed.
If you would, please. We're going to get you on the microphone.
Bobby Reed. I'm here representing Foxland Harbor. I'm sure all of y'all are aware of that. In the process of getting this permitted and doing the due diligence on it, we're contemplating doing a new entrance to the parking lot. And in doing that, we're required to put some fill material on private property. Even though it's private property, the Corps operates with elevations. Normal lake pool is 445. Overflow capacity is up to 451. So if you put any fill material below 451, you've got to compensate for it. In other words, if I fill a hole up here, I've got to go dig another hole somewhere else below 451 for the hydraulics, so if the lake gets up, that it can fill that hole in place of the one that I just filled up. So I've picked a site. I have a handout for y'all to look at. Here you go, Bobby. I'll let you get that in your hand. I hope I have enough.
Here. You pass that to them and we'll share this one.
So what you have in your hand is an overview of the soccer field on by Rogers Group. The soccer field is on Corps property. 100% of that field is on Corps property. The city has at least from the Corps used as a park and recreation area. In searching, I discovered that I picked 3 sites, but this one works best for me, and the Corps approves it. So what you see there in red along the tree line, and you see the creek falling around behind it. So I'm going to make a 2-foot cut, and I'm going to leave it mowable and bevel the edges, and then I show a little ditch coming out of it that runs back into the creek. So if the lake ever did get up and fill that hole with water, it won't retain it. It will drain back out of it. And I spoke with David Brown on a couple occasions. David has no problem with it, but he suggested that I come here before the council because what I'm looking for is simply a letter of no objection.
Well, I tell you what we need to do. First of all, I need your address for the record, first of all.
What do you need?
Your address.
My address?
Yes, just for
my
the...
personal address.
You can give us your personal or your business, just for the record.
Post Office Box 247, Salina, Tennessee, 38551.
Okay. And this is a public comment period of the meeting?
Yes.
And so if you'll stick around, I feel like there may be interest in discussing this a little bit further, but right now it's just public comment, so we don't do a back and forth. If there are further questions, we may call you back up.
That's fine. Have I given you enough information?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under public recognition? You may do so at this time. So seeing no one else indicating that they wish to speak, I'll declare public recognition closed. And should you like to discuss the item that was brought to us, we certainly may at this point. I feel like it is maybe something that the city attorney needs to look at and make sure, if Mr. Brown, that was my initial thought as he was explaining this, if it affected the fields. Also, maybe feel like Rogers Group should be notified. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
I will definitely need to review the lease, and if you have any documentation from the Corps of Engineers that you could provide to me, that would be appreciated. But I'll need to review a lot of documents really before they can make any determination.
And I would think engineering also would want to look at it. But give us a little bit of time to look through this, and then we will follow up with you unless this council has some other comment at this point.
And you can, I don't know if you know how to get in touch with me, Mr. Green, or not. But if you look on the website for the city attorney, you can get my phone number there.
Any of those people at the table right there can help you.
Okay. So, but you're not lacking anything as far as information is
Well,
required?
I'm going to need to review the lease that the city has with the Corps. I'll have to review that to make sure what you're wanting to do, we can do. Any documentation that you said you need a letter of no objection, and you said that the Corps has approved this. I'm going to need to see documentation from the Corps stating that they approve it.
I can't provide that to you
Okay.
because this is all submittals, and until the entire package is submitted, we're submitting it piece by piece by piece. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Forestry, TWRA. Every time I turn in a submittal, the Corps either takes it or rejects it. When they reject it, I have to do something different. I've turned this into the Corps. They've accepted it as a good plan. Now, it may be, I don't know how far down the road before I can come to you and say, because they approve the plan as a whole. They don't piecemeal it.
Right.
So-
Perhaps you and I and Mr. Brown, probably we need to get together and meet.
Okay.
Probably be the best course of action.
So Mr. Brown's not here?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And maybe engineering
okay.
as well.
And possibly engineering. I think we probably need to get together, and so if you can give your phone number to Mr. Brown, or if he has that, maybe we can set up a meeting where we can discuss this further.
But you do have a plan that you can share that would help engineering understand what the plan is and
What I gave to you is the total plan. It's area 197 by 50 feet with a 2-foot cut, 448 elevation down to 446. It gets no more detailed than that.
let us follow up. I'll ask that Mr. Brown coordinate that, and we will get together soon on that.
Thank you.
Would have been happy to set a meeting and you not have to be here prior, but it's new to me, so I apologize for your time. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to mayor's comments. Do have a few things to share. I want you all to know that we are moving on the census. There have been some movement in employing people. We have hired Gracie Perez to kind of lead our efforts. Rosemary and I met her a few months ago. We were hopeful that we would be able to hire her. We have been successful in doing that. She's a dynamo, and she's very organized, and she has orders all over for us to do work. Are you trying to tell me something, Jeff? Oh, okay. I thought, are you trying to tell me something over there? So she has a lot moving, and soon you will see census messaging begin to roll out, a QR code where people can complete the census online, and I need this council to be prepared to tell everyone, everywhere they go, to please complete the census. And those of you who recall doing it in 2015, the process this time is even more simple, and hopefully we'll be able to prove a substantial amount of growth, bringing more revenue to the city without costing our citizens a single penny, which is the goal. Also want to share with this council that a few of us from the city have just returned from the Tennessee Municipal League Conference. It was in Knoxville this year. Training for elected officials, utility training, our attorney training for municipal attorneys was going on. Lots of educational seminars, workshops, an interesting one on special census, solid waste management, or landfill issues coming in the future. Google Cloud was there talking about that. TVA was there talking about their future plans. Got to spend some time with Mr. Lyash, the CEO of TVA. It was a very, very good event, and I'm going to really encourage that council and more department heads, Chief Beeman went, attend next year if you are able to. And I know Ms. Nichols has gone in the past and others, but this was a very, very good conference, and I'm very optimistic about what the future conference may be. So working on that in the year ahead. And we do have important legislation this year, and you all will hear more about that as we get into the fall and towards the legislative session next year. Events upcoming that I want you to be aware of. The Trans Amorama is happening this week. It starts essentially on the 25th, happens on the 26th. They're doing a scenic cruise and lunch, evening show, and cruise in through downtown that evening. On the 27th, they're actually having an evening downtown takeover at 5 p.m. There's a Trans Amorama First Responder Pancake Breakfast on the 28th, and which is on Sunday. So next several days, there's going to be a lot of Trans Ams and Camaros in our community. Know that they're associated with that event. And again, that we are so grateful that Second Gen Graveyard is bringing that to our city, because it's bringing people to our city to spend some money and visit us and shop at our businesses and eat at our restaurants. This week also, other big news, the station is opening. You may have received an invitation to a grand opening of the station or the Good Morning Gallatin legislative meeting on Friday. That will be happening across the street at the Chamber's new location. And Stuart McWhorter, Commissioner, is going to be our speaker. That will be fabulous. And then there will be a ribbon cutting celebrating the opening of the station. Beyond that, E.T. is the kids' summer movie series on the 2nd of August, and David Kellogg's birthday on the 3rd of August. And then Grit, Grace, and Grub Week starts on August 3rd and runs through August 11th. So I think that is it for events, unless there's something that someone has that I did not mention. All right. We'll now move to the regular agenda, and the first item this evening is ordinance 02407-35, an ordinance appropriating funds received in the amount of $817.28 for damage to a traffic control device.
The traffic control device, it was actually a school speed zone flasher on Bison Trail, was damaged and replaced. This is the money that's been received to try to replenish the funds that were spent to replace it.
Motion to move it on.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Hayes. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Moves forward unanimously. Item 2 is Resolution R2407-59, a resolution to authorize the City of Gallatin to apply for a Safer Streets for All grant. Mr. Tuttle.
The federal government has begun a program just a few years ago called Safer Streets for All, and they are funding lots and lots of projects that try to reduce or hopefully eliminate roadway fatalities across America. great projects can be applied for and great projects have been funded. The problem that we have in making any kind of application is that we do not have a comprehensive safety action plan, which is required for this program. Good news is the program allows you to apply for a grant to get that done. And so that's what we're doing. So this is really a long game play here, hoping that this program continues to be funded for years and into the future. You never know with the federal government and the programs that they have lasting from group to group as the new presidents go in and out and different folks are calling the shots. But we believe that even if we don't get a grant after this one, that this is a good thing for us. What we have gotten from consultants on estimates to do this plan is anywhere between $200,000 to $250,000. It's an 80 to 20% ratio that the federal government funds 80% and the locals fund 20%. So what we're expecting is $40,000 to $50,000 to get this plan done. We don't have that money appropriated at this point in time, but if we were to get the grants, we would be coming to you and asking for that to be appropriated, most likely from undesignated general fund money.
Motion by Councilman Fan.
Second.
Second by Councilman Hayes. This is a fund that has a lot of money in it and has generally a low number of applications. We've really
Right.
been encouraged to apply for it. And I think that this plan, even if this fund were to go away next year, it would help us with other applications.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it also would be a great plan for us to have and utilize as we choose our investments moving forward. So does anyone have any questions or discussion points that you want to bring up? Okay, seeing no one, this is a vote for Resolution R2407-59 to move forward. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It shall move forward. Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Item number 3 is amended ordinance 02405-20, an ordinance to provide revenue for the city of Gallatin for municipal purposes for the 2024 tax year and the 25 fiscal year. Ms. Nichols has done some work to help you have information to kind of look at this a bit more holistically, because I think there's some things that you need to be aware of as we decide where we're going to set the tax rate for this year. Ms. Nichols.
Received notice from the state and from the county that our certified tax rate will be 52.95 cents per $100 of assessed value, where currently it's 80.01 cent per $100 of assessed value. So we had a pretty large decrease. Before the meeting, I handed out on each of your desk 3 or 4 pages just of some informational type data. The first one is a property tax comparison showing appraised values at 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, and what the 80.01 cent rate generated. Based on the county having an overall average increase of 67%, if you apply that to the appraised value and apply the new tax rate, it shows how much each individual homeowner would potentially be paying, assuming their increase was 67%. For a $100,000 home, it would be roughly $21 on their tax bill. For a $500,000 home, it would be roughly $105 on their tax bill. This middle section of the page is what the property value would go to if we were to have a truly revenue neutral tax rate, sorry, that's poor wording. We do have a truly revenue neutral tax rate. If each individual saw the same tax dollar due on their 24 bill that they had on their 23 bill. In order to make that work, a $100,000 home would now be valued at $151,000. A $500,000 home would now be appraised at $755,000. Those values based on the new rates would both generate the same amount of tax dollars. And then the third section is just hypothetically, if somebody's home value doubled, that's what their tax rate would look like. That's what their tax increase would look like. Just some comparisons for you to have in case people ask.
So there was, and the reason the numbers are different is the overall county increase was greater than the city of Gallatin's increase.
Right.
And so I had Rachel do this so you could kind of be able to advise people why they may see when they get their tax bill. If we're saying, if we go with a neutral rate, everybody assumes it would stay the exact same, but if their property increased more or less than that rate, there would be some difference. But I also want you to consider some other things as we make a decision, and I'll let Ms. Nichols continue.
The second page is a summary of the appraisal ratio. Every year, there is a review of personal property and public utilities. They basically have a reappraisal every year. They're revalued, and based on that, the state applies a appraisal ratio or sales ratio that the intent is to keep their tax level, or their tax level. So for 2019, which was our last reappraisal year, the reappraisal ratio was 1 because everything had been reevaluated and revalued,
And
reassessed.
it was at the same rate as what all the other property was, all the real property.
And then in 2020, we had not seen that much growth, that much change. So the sales ratio actually stayed 1 at that time. In 2021, we started seeing some growth. We started seeing some housing values increase when people sold. So for 21 and 22, the state made our appraisal ratio 89.53%, which on paper reduces what we can collect from personal property tax and public utilities.
So you see in that year, it was about $100,000 hit.
And then last year, they dropped it even further because housing values had gone so high in Gallatin and Sumner County. This is based on county level, but the county's property values had grown so much that they hit or set our appraisal ratio at 61.56%, which in this calculation shows almost, or a little over $400,000 that we were not able to collect in tax revenues because of that. These were estimated numbers early on. I believe last year I said we were closer to $500,000 that we lost when final numbers came out based on that appraisal ratio. It's called appraisal ratio or sales ratio. But both of those numbers, or both of those, same thing, negatively affects what we actually collect.
So you look at it in like that 5-year cycle, what that means is it was $635,000 essentially. But then when the revenue neutral rate is set, it's based on that last valuation. And so that is where we have then already taken that 635 out of the equation, and they set the new rate based upon that. I mean, we're kind of starting over with the new cycle, but it's just weird to me that, we're taking less than we should have because of the whole Tennessee sales ratio thing, which it was enlightening to even learn because it was the first time it had impacted us, so.
Prior years, it's been 0.98, 0.95, maybe a 0.89. We've never gotten 65. That was painful.
Yeah, and it was so sizable that the comptroller actually reached out to me personally to have a conversation about it. And that was kind of the impetus for the legislation that happened this past year. I mean, not just us, it happened to other cities too. If you have a lot of industrial, you tend to get a heavy hit. And when it hits us, it also hits Sumner County, or it hits other counties with a lot of industry. And that was why he moved legislation this year to push county tax appraisals to shorter cycles. Because if everything's being appraised on a 1 or 2 or 3 year cycle, you're not going to have that same impact as if it's appraised on a 5-year cycle. And so I think the legislation that ultimately passed was that it was up to the county, but they encouraged it. I think that's kind of what it was. So it's not forced, but I mean, we will likely be in the same scenario yet again. But I want you to know that because those dollars are taken out of the equation essentially, in my mind, when they're calculating what the neutral rate is. And then other information?
The last two pages are Gallatin's 2024 certified tax rate compared to others within 5 cents plus or minus, but these are their 2023 tax rates. The state has not yet published everybody's 24 certified rates because a lot of them are still going through their appeals process. But right now, Gallatin would fall 52.95. You can see the cities that are closely ranked. And then the last page is where the 2023 tax rate, where Gallatin was, and then bottom section is all the different rates within Sumner County. I'm sure all of the Sumner County ones will change. On the 2024 page, the counties that are highlighted to the left, they were also having reappraisals this year, so those will likely change.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought this would be interesting for you to see. I may also send you a link after tonight's meeting to where you can look at all the cities and counties in the state and get a sense of what Middle Tennessee counties' rates are, what Middle Tennessee cities' rates are. You see where that puts us in comparison to the rest of Sumner County, although across the board in the county, their rates are coming down too. You know, I never thought we would have a lower tax rate than Hendersonville, but we do. But I find this list very interesting because what you're looking at is a couple of very rich cities. Well, I say a couple, I see Belmead, but very, very high property value cities. Also, several cities on here that don't offer services like we do, i.e. fire departments. So it is a very, very, very low tax rate for a city our size. I'll remind you that the budget is based upon a neutral rate, but I want you to have full information. Remember, we go through 3 readings on this, and so what you're voting on tonight is moving it forward for first reading, but I did want you to have some comprehensive information so that you can...
Not first reading.
Third reading. This is final
Oh,
reading.
that's right, I forgot about that, because we already did 2. Thank
It
you.
too, just with the
Okay.
wording that it would be at the certified rate.
That's right, so we can get it passed as quickly as we
Yes.
possibly could. Thank you. I'd forgotten that. So what I said, I take back. You have one more reading before it's official. But it's for your information. So do y'all have some questions for Rachel? Do you want to think about it and let it absorb? Maybe go ahead and move it forward to council, and then you can...
Motion to send it to council.
Okay, motion by Councilman Hayes.
Second.
I think you need to clarify your motion as to what the rate is that we are sending forward to third reading at this point, which would be that .5295.
Okay, .5295, yeah.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Hayes. Are you okay to second that by Councilman Fan? Okay, with that, I have a motion and a second. No questions? I know it's a lot to absorb. I'll do my best to answer any questions if you have them in the coming week. Ms. Nichols is probably far better at it, but
I just want to mention, if you do want to set it higher, we won't be able to do that next council meeting.
we have to notice it.
We have to notice it in the paper for a week before you take action. Well, this is a 5th Tuesday, so actually
that's
you
fine.
probably could do it at the first August meeting. But if that is something you're considering, we would need to advertise that to the public.
It would become delayed if that was something that you wanted to do. So,
Can you think of any reasons we'd set it higher?
well, I mean, if you're really looking, again, holistically and for long-term sustainability, Gallatin has lived off the increase provided by our growth for many years. And at some point, that doesn't happen. And so the question becomes, is it better to increase a little here, 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 here over the years, or do you hit everybody with a large increase all at once, which is not something I would ever recommend doing. I don't think right now we need to increase the rate, but I also feel that Gallatin has gotten on that, I don't know, for lack of a better term, political platform was, oh, we haven't raised taxes in 20 years. And I mean, I brag about it. But we're not being really honest if we think that this tax rate will always provide for what we need. Because in case you hadn't noticed, inflation hits everything. So that's why I want you to be able to think about all these things. So the decision at some point in the future is going to have to be made.
Is there any formula that Rachel could, is there any formula for that?
For when you would raise it?
Your budget is pretty much your determination of when you need to, and like I said, right now, we're
We're good now, I understand what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
At what point do you make that decision, and how often does it have, can it be made?
well, it can be made annually. I mean,
Okay, well then we're
yeah,
good.
yeah. So, I mean, I want to communicate to the public transparently, and I want the council to be able to help communicate to the public transparently. I mean, it was just a few years ago that our property tax rate was $1.33 or $1.35, and then it was 99 cents for a long time, and then we dropped it down to 80 cents 5 years ago, and now we're looking at going to 53 cents essentially. So,
My time here, there was one reappraisal where the rate came in lower, but the council
the 99
chose
cents.
to leave it level.
they kept it at 99 cents where the adjusted rate actually, or the neutral rate would have been something
Lower.
different. Yeah.
And that was in order to bring in additional revenues. Right now, the property tax historically grows about 3 to 4% per year. Sales tax grows about 7% per year. Expenses are growing at a greater rate. Those
So
are
there's
your.
really no reason to raise it any higher until we get to a situation where we need to.
It is strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the budget, you saw the things we didn't fund in the budget. There are a lot more things we could fund if we had more revenue. But we also don't want to burden our citizens. We don't have the benefit of impact fees. We've done a lot with our development departments to help support a lot of the costs, but there's one day there are going to be real challenges.
I agree with you.
I don't think terrible ones though, because in saying this stuff and trying to be very holistic about it, I do think that we need to recognize that Gallatin's strengths are not entirely unique, but unique among a lot of the cities in our area, in that we have a revenue stream also from personal property. We now have a revenue stream from sales tax. We're asking to put we are putting sales tax on the ballot in November. That was actually, I'm glad I thought of that, because that actually is something I also think is important for you to consider. I think it's good. I think it would be good for us to tell citizens that we've lowered the property tax rate, but we're asking for this increase in sales tax. So the burden is not theirs, but everybody that shops in Gallatin. But I'm just speaking real honestly here.
And even more reason to fill out your census forms, because
That's
all you have to do is be counted and you generate more money.
That's
So-
right. Every person that we can increase in our census in Gallatin brings in $179 annually by this year's calculation.
Yes.
We got anybody going to the graveyards?
Okay, sometimes you're not funny. So anyway, that's your information. We have a motion and a second to move it forward at 5295. All in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Ms. Nichols, thank you so much for your explanation and the information that you provided. Again, I would encourage anyone to call with any questions you may have. Item number 4 is Resolution R2407-60. It's a resolution approving an updated consultant selection policy for the City of Gallatin projects funded in whole or in part with the funds provided by the Federal Highway Administration or the Tennessee Department of Transportation. Ms. Nichols.
2017, the city passed this policy initially. It's for the TDOT consultant selection process. It's a requirement that we do this for certain FHWA and TDOT funds that we receive, and the state will periodically update their policy. This request before you is to update our policy to the latest TDOT version.
Motion to move it on.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Allison. Are there any questions, any discussion? This is Resolution R2407-60. All in favor of moving forward, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Unanimously moves to council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Item number 5 is ordinance 02407-37. It's an ordinance amending the Gallatin Municipal Code, Chapter 9, Fire Protection and Prevention by adopting the 2024 International Fire Code and other related matters. For this explanation, Brandon Howell.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, council members, my name is Brandon Howell. I'm Assistant Director of Building Codes, Commercial Plan Reviewer, Fire Inspector, pretty much whatever they ask me to do. So I come before you tonight. I have a couple of items on the agenda. If it's okay, Mayor, items 5, 7, and 8, I've got a small presentation if that's okay. What I've been tasked with to come before you all tonight is to present you all with 2 ordinances and a resolution to update our building codes for the city of Gallatin. As you can see here, we are currently on the 2018 building codes for the city of Gallatin. We have been, and you all adopted this back in 2018. They took effect, I believe, I want to say late November 18, early 19. And what we were looking for tonight is, as the years go on, the state requires us to be within 7 years of the current year on our ICC building codes. So this going in next year, the 2025, we would need to adopt these codes. 24 is moving forward. They come out with the books this year. We spent about 6 months, myself, Deputy Director Harris, and Director Stewart. We've been going through the books. We finally got a whole set of books and been going through and hashing out what we think needs to be adopted for the city. And I know there's always been a lot of questions about different things and how we adopt the codes. I want everyone to know our biggest reason for adopting codes and the building department is the safety of our citizens. Our life safety is our major goal. It's even in our mission statement. That is for the life safety of the citizens. We want our citizens to feel as safe in their homes when they leave their homes and they go out to Old Charlie's or Walmart or those places. We want them to feel as safe there as they do in their own homes. So that's our biggest goal in the building department is to make sure they feel safe. So what we have before you tonight in the first ordinance is 02407-37 is the fire code. And what we've looked at here in the fire code, it's not a whole lot of difference than what we've adopted in the previous one. The one major item that we have decided to put in and looking for your adoption is in 18, we reduced the fire area from 12,000 square foot to 5,000 square foot. At 5,000 square foot, anything over 5,000 square foot, 5,000 square foot would have to be sprinkled. Well, what we've ran into is everyone is sending in plans for 4,998,000 square feet. So with the adoption of this tonight, what we've recommended is that we will lower it to 3,500 square feet. And most of your shell buildings, what we call shell buildings or strip malls, they're building these and what they're doing is they're getting right up to that number and they're not going over the number, and so they don't have to sprinkle them. But with this adoption that they would have to sprinkle these, that's making the city safer. that's making our residents and the people that come in and spend their money in this town, it's going to make them feel safer when they walk in and see a sprinkler system, a fire alarm system, all these things that need to be in these buildings to keep our citizens safe. So that would be one of our most major changes in the adoption, is reducing it to 3,500 square feet.
And that's only commercial.
Yes, ma'am. This is not for 1 and 2 family residential homes, detached residential homes. We want to make sure on that.
Say if you built an 80 by 40 building and you chopped it up into rentable pieces, the whole building needs to be sprinkled, but you'd have to count it as a whole building?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what we do on shell buildings a lot. We have several new ones, especially on the western end of town towards Hendersonville. We've got some now that right now they've built a shell building. What they'll do is go back in and they'll put in a firewall perhaps. Some of those, they have to be sprinkled anyway, because a lot of them, like Edley's and ML Rose, all those that are being built now, they're restaurants, so they have to be over the seating capacity. What we find here as well, in if you notice, we're also going to adopt. I apologize, I'm having to read. The Life Safety Code will be also adopted from 2018 to the 2024 edition as well. Continue on down, you'll find in the sprinkler section, in section 9-74, we'll find in section 974G4E, we're going to go from where it's replacing the words group of 4 to group of 3. What that is stating is, if there is a residential building, that if it has more than 3 units in it, that they will be sprinkled. That's what that's adopting.
It was what previously?
4. Ordinance number 20407-36. This will be the building code. Not only the building code, you'll find building, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, existing building code, and property maintenance. All of these, the section here, 903.1 is your general, it's automatic sprinklers. It's going to read the same as the fire code. It just has to be adopted in the building code as well. And let's see, we'll go one more here. The residential building code, and this is the major point I wanted to point out to you all tonight about the residential building code. We're adopting the residential building code with the following amendments to it. In section R302.1, the exterior walls of the residential structures, we find it's talking about the separation distance. What we would like to do here, and we've put in these amendments, is to move it from greater than 5 feet to replace that to say greater than 6 feet. What that is doing is moving the outside walls on these 1 and 2 family structures from 5 foot setback off the property line to a 6 foot setback. What that is doing is reducing your fire load. This is to help in case structures catch on fire. And I believe Chief Beeman would back us up on that 100%, to be able to, these structures, the only thing we have is on the protections, is that they would have no more of a allowable of 3 feet. Most of the time, I'll kind of say this in my own layman's terms. If you have like a bay window that's pushed out on a residential structure, that can be no closer than 3 foot projection out on the side to the property line. That's what we're proposing on the residential building code. Also as well, you will find here that in 309.2, the 1 and 2 family residential structures, it does call for sprinkling, but the Tennessee code, TCA code 68-121, it's deleting this in its entirety in the ICC residential building code and replacing it with the following: residential sprinkler systems will be required in 1 and 2 family dwellings if the separation distance is 12 feet or less. And the city of Gallatin has already adopted it, that it's at 10 feet.
do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
If the structures are closer, right now, if the structures are closer than 12 feet together, closer together, will have to be sprinkled.
Okay.
Right now, it's at 10 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
And this is just, I'm just kind of hitting the highlights on some of this for you all. We've included it in your packet tonight, so I would hope that you would go through it, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask myself, Deputy Director Harris, or Director Stewart. We'll be more than glad to answer any of your questions at any time.
Yeah, and I do think that we're going to need a little bit further explanation because particularly in your first group of changes, I don't really know what that's relevant to as far as what it changes the requirements to be.
You talking about on the fire code, ma'am?
Yes.
Basically, we're reducing the fire area from 5,000 to 3,500 square feet. What you're doing is, right now, if you build a building that's 5,000 square feet or more, it has to be sprinkled. We're changing that from 5,000 to 3,500 square feet. If it's a building that's built over 3,500 square feet, the building will have to be sprinkled. Basically, what we're looking at here now is the change, just basic word cleanup, and we appreciate the attorney's office and the efforts they've done to help us with it. We greatly appreciate that. We find here the plumbing code is being changed. The electrical code is the only thing that's a little bit different. The electrical code is being changed from 2017 to the 2023 code. It's the only one that's kind of off. It's off by 1 year. Instead of everything being 2024, it's 1 year behind everything else. We also have the gas code, mechanical code, property maintenance, and existing building code. The next thing will be, and you'll find this, I think it's item number 8 on the agenda tonight, is our rules and policies and procedures for the City of Gallatin building codes. The only thing that we've added here really is the dumpster ordinance that you all have already approved through the city. It's just something that we've added to our rules and policies. And one other thing that we did add was where we do inspections on solar panels. You wouldn't believe how much more now coordinating with the Gallatin Electric Department is and doing these solar panel installations. It's way more than I ever expected. So it's just one of the things that we've added into our rules and policies. And again, there's our mission statement. I've already talked to you all about that, told you about it. Our biggest thing with the City of Gallatin building codes is to make sure that our citizens feel safe wherever they're at. And that's my presentation, ma'am.
Well, we appreciate what you do, and I think most citizens do feel very safe in our buildings these days.
That's all I'm worried about.
Is
I want us to make sure that they feel
These
safe.
days, I think
Everybody
people are
does
more
it.
scared of people than buildings, but appreciate your efforts, so.
Is there one single code that we've changed that's creating a lot of controversy?
Well, that's the thing I wanted to tell you as well. In May, we had our contractor classes. We emailed all of our contractors. We had them come out. We had met at the Civic Center on Tuesday, every Tuesday in May, except for the last one. We had them there for electrical classes, mechanical, building. We went through all these changes with our contractors. No one seemed to have an issue with anything that I could could tell you about. We talked to them there. We've had them, some of them have called and emailed. No one seems to have an issue now. They may call you and tell you something different, Sean.
Gotcha.
You know, per square foot price for sprinkling approximately?
I don't have a square foot on that, but for residential, it usually runs anywhere from around $20,000.
For residential? 20,000?
Somewhere in that area, between 15 and 20.
I think it had gone down significantly.
It has. It really has. If you get a normal tenant build out or a shell building, it's anywhere from 80 to 120,000.
Mr. Howell?
Yeah, Mr. Howe, thanks for your presentation. Just to help me in my education, that setback increase from 5 foot to 6 foot, can you explain that just a little bit more? Is that just from where that would be from?
What that is just increasing the distance between your structures, your residential structures, in case a structure does catch on fire. Is a little bit more distance between each home. That way, if it has, what it is the house next door is an exposure to.
I thought that was the 10 foot to 12 foot.
Yes.
12 foot, I'm talking about the, I wrote down from 5 foot to 6 foot from, I guess it was a property line.
Well, that's what it is. It is. On the setback, on your property line, right now it has to be 5 foot from the property line. So if you have a property line, you have 5 foot on this side and 5 foot on this side, which makes 10 feet. What we're saying is that you have from the property line, increase that to 6 foot and 6 foot, which makes 12 feet. So that's the difference.
And
Thank you for that clarification.
No, I may not have explained it the way it needed to be
And-
explained.
And to me, I mean, I know you're talking about from a fire safety, but I also see it as maybe some people will like that better, just to have a little more space between homes, just aesthetically or personal living choices, whatever. So,
I would think Chief Beeman would probably agree with us on it as well.
There's probably landscapers and HVAC repair people and lots of people that would appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
So even when you get into a sprinkle building, it's not gonna matter if the building was all steel or metal? It's more of like safety on the inside and the contents that can still catch on fire? Okay. So they're not gonna, nobody's gonna really be able to get around that?
I saw the mayor had the confusion thing here. We talked to Director Rose also before we brought this code forward and explained to them, they're gonna lose some lots out there eventually going down that street because he's losing 2 feet every time. So it's gonna change density a little bit, okay? It's also gonna give these emergency personnel that more space between those things. If you're fighting a fire and you got a house here and you got a house here and you're fighting this fire and this one, that extra 2 feet means something to them because we talked with some of the firefighters about it. But what's happening right now on a typical strip mall is they'll put one riser room in. That's their code requirement. You passed in 18 that they have to supply a riser room in that strip mall. The riser is what starts the whole fire system. Well, at 3,500 square feet, he's gonna go ahead and sprinkle that whole building. What's happening now is they'll put a insurance office in, a dental clinic or something. All of a sudden, this last guy wants a restaurant. Well, he's got to sprinkle. Now he's got to go back in here and sprinkle that building. And then this one moves out and somebody else moves in, it requires a sprinkler system. And this is the way we explain it to them in the class. You covered it all on the front end. You sprinkle the building. We're not going to get much under 3,500 square feet out there. If they do, they're going to be individual standalones. But the strip centers, they're all pushing right at 5,000. So now they'll cut the cost of putting it in is reduced because they got 3 or 4 tenants that's going to be picking up on that. So we had nobody backed up. They all agreed what we were trying to reach here for a safety standpoint for the city and for our firefighters is it's a lot easier on them. By the time they get to that building, that fire just about out, okay? So trying to do this, and I'm gonna tell y'all, until you deal with them, it's hard to satisfy a bunch of contractors, okay? It's really hard. And you asked about that residential sprinkler system, what is called a 13B, I believe?
Yes, sir.
It runs off domestic water. It's basically PEX piping coming off the back of the toilet with sprinkler heads. So yes, the price on residential sprinkling has gone way down, which in 2018, we pulled townhouses out of it. Well, the rules changed on townhouses versus condos. So we just left it in this time. We didn't add it to the code. It's already in the code. About 4 or more units requires a residential sprinkler system in them. And most places are already doing it. You know, Mount Juliet, I talked to all those jurisdictions, they're already doing that. They've been doing it because it's in the code back there.
I see that sprinkler systems could bring your insurance down as a fire perspective, but would it also raise your insurance because of leakage and? No. Okay.
The savings on insurance. If I were building a new home today in the country where I live, I'd sprinkle it because of the cost effectiveness and what it can save me. You know, that's just the way I am about it. But we talked to sprinkler contractors, we talked to building contractors, we talked to developers, we had them all at these meetings. And if you haven't had a phone call from any of them complaining about this code, well, we haven't. We haven't heard a word. Brandon did a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Howell, what's the will of the body?
Motion to send it on.
Motion by Councilman.
I second that.
Does your motion include all three, the two ordinances and the resolution that he
We can
discussed?
do that, yes. Can we do that? That would be item number 5, 7, and 8?
Yes.
I'll second his motion.
You can do it here, you can't do it at a meeting, but.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll send them on to council 5, 7, and 8.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fennell. Okay. Okay, let me go back and give you the numbers so that we're straight. So ordinance 02407-37, ordinance 02407-36, and resolution R2407-63. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. These items do move forward to council with a unanimous vote in favor. We'll now go to item number 6, which is ordinance 02407-34, an ordinance appropriating $9,588 for repairs to Codes vehicle.
Yes, ma'am, this is just an ordinance recovering funds from a vehicle accident that we had last month.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Will that reduce the amount that you're going to be asking for when you get your new vehicle? Okay. Thank you. Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ordinance 02407-34 moves forward to council. Item 9 is Resolution R2407-61, reappointing Phil Carver to the Gallatin Industrial Development Board. Ms. Bates, Executive Director of UDA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Fennell, second by Vice Mayor Love.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Resolution R2407-61. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does pass unanimously. Item 10 is Resolution R2407-62, reappointing Derek Jackson to the Gallatin Industrial Development Board.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Carter. Any questions, any discussion? All in favor of moving that Resolution R2407-62 forward, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does move forward unanimously. Thanks for your hard work this evening, Ms. Bates. That concludes the regular agenda. It brings us now to other business. I would ask if any member of this body has other business to bring forward. Councilman Carter.
I would just like everybody to join me in congratulating our mayor, who was appointed as the new president of Tennessee Municipal League. So congratulations, Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. I am honored to serve.
We're proud.
And then also, just want to say kudos to our department heads, specifically our legal department. I met several reps at the conference from PEP, and they were very complimentary of our law department. So great job, Susan.
I heard lots of compliments about lots of department heads. You all have a great reputation with vendors, other cities. We also had a lot of outreach. Jeff had a lot of inquiries about stuff, but we did have a lot of outreach with people that want to have a conversation with our finance director, or our fire chief, or our police chief, or our public works director. So it made me happy to hear the reputation that we have around the state.
And I guess I can say it now since I'm back here, and the other cities probably won't see, but I think it was somebody from C-Spire. They talked about how great our city is and said that we're the best city to work with. So good job to you guys.
Yeah, so absolutely. And that is very true. I think we all experienced that. Appreciate that, Councilman Carter. Anyone else with other business on this body?
One more thing. Jeff brought it up because he stayed in the session about special census, but I think when we start working on that, Rosemary and Mayor, we definitely need to get some input from Jeff about that because there are some incentives that we can offer citizens about that. And like we can offer gift cards and do drawings or something, and we don't even have to pay for that out of our own budgets. The state will cover it for us.
I'm excited. I really am excited about the special census. I think I told you last time I updated you that, Ms. Bates led it last time, and it was pretty much an in-house effort. And this time felt like it was going to be so impossible. But now we have this Wonder Woman that is going to help make it happen for the city of Gallatin. I can't wait for you to have the opportunity to meet her and some of the people that she's bringing on board. So it's a really exciting time. I
I
look
think
forward
too,
to it.
we all need to be a big advocate for that and help ease people's minds.
Everywhere
So,
you go.
yes.
We are going to, you are all going to be carrying a QR code with you so that people can fill it out while you make sure they do. So it will help us all to get that done. Okay, any department head reports this evening? All right, seeing none, one more motion. Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Carter. Thank you all for being here. Have a lovely evening, and we will not see you next week because it is the 5th Tuesday and there is no meeting.
We don't have